The character of Raven was invented by two people. Scott Levy had this concept, and he pitched it to one person who was obsessed with pop culture and the music revolution and the hip hop revolution, and not that Raven was hip hop, but his character was this angst. See, here's the magic of Raven. The magic of Raven was that he was a sympathetic character who deserved no sympathy. He was beaten by his drunken father, but you didn't feel bad for him. He came from a broken home, of which a lot of people could identify with, but nobody could identify with him. Why? Because he was such a great heel that and what a performer, by the way, at that time, that nobody cheered him. That in front of the smartest audience in the world at the time, he could outsmart them on a nightly basis. It wasn't the 50-50 thing that you see now where people go, yeah, he's a heel, but I respect his work. Oh, he's a heel, but he's a great worker. People hated Raven. They paid to see him lose. They paid to see him get his ass kicked. People paid for 2.5 years waiting for Tommy Dreamer to finally get that first victory over Raven. Why? Because of the brilliance of Scott Levy's performance. No one outside of two people, Scott Levy and Paul Heyman, understood that, because we had the privilege, again that word, and the blessing of creating that character together. Now, when you hand that over to an Eric Bischoff on Eric's best day at his brightest, no, I'm not knocking him on this. Anybody in here on your best day, on your brightest, won't be able to tap into the soul of that character because you didn't create it. Because you weren't there when we sat there for days on end and said, who is this guy? What's his history? What's his story? When do we reveal that his father was a drunk? When do we talk about the beatings he suffered as a child? How many weeks in, how many years into the story do we reveal that? And if you're not part of that process, how can you possibly then be within the soul of the character? If you and any of you sat in a room and created a character and let it play out on television, where this character evolves and this character has all these layers, and then you hand the character to me after 4 years and say, run with it. I can't. I'm going to have to change this character by giving him part of a vision that I will see, because I wasn't in those discussions where you very carefully decided what day this new layer gets peeled back. Eric Bischoff could never have booked Raven properly because he didn't understand the soul of Raven. Vince McMahon could not have written for Raven properly because he didn't understand the soul of Raven. And Scott Levy was so inside the soul of Raven that when you tried to get this character to go in a different direction, it didn't make sense to Scott Levy anymore, because inside his heart was the blood of Raven. I can't say that Raven didn't have a chance at being the main event. He did. He went for what he found to be a much greater opportunity in WCW. Financially it was, but in terms of the development of that character, it wasn't, okay? Who never had a shot on top? I'll give you a different answer, okay? I'll give you one that doesn't truly answer your question, but addresses it. Who should have been a much bigger star than they were? Sabu. And a lot of that, much like Shane Douglas, and Sabu will be the first one to confess to this, was self-inflicted, but by the time Sabu had an opportunity to perform in front of a much bigger audience than ECW could present to him, Sabu had destroyed his own body, both in the ring and with out-of-ring activities, and the world never got a chance to really see the best of Sabu unless you either A, have videotapes from 1993, 1994, the beginning of 1995, or and I'm not plugging the WWE network, but if you happen to get it and they have those shows on it and Sabu's on those shows, you can see him at his best. Or on any other, YouTube, whichever method you choose. Sabu in that era was revolutionary. He was ahead of his. That's the thing about being ahead of your time. You don't make the money that other people will, stealing all of your. In which case, ECW, bankrupt, Attitude Era, billionaires. So. Sabu falls into that. Sabu had the right, or should have gone down in history as truly one of the most influential, one of the most groundbreaking superstars ever. And I don't think that'll be his legacy, though. And again, he has to take some of the blame for this, but that's the answer. Of all the people that I've seen in the past 30 years, who deserved more than he ended up with, Sabu.